Hi, everyone. So, over the past month or so, this has been my quest, my focus. It begins with a concept that I've mentioned throughout my videos, and that is to fully understand exactly what it is that has provided some humans with a knowledge or faculty to be able to completely and unconditionally accept and embrace their life exactly as it comes, no matter what is happening in their lives or in the world. So, going back to an earlier part of my life, when I first became aware, with it came the disturbing awareness of the deep ignorance and hostilities found here, which of course immediately made me want to run away. And this disappointment of the planet and its inhabitants continued on for many years, sometimes nearly crushing my natural vibration. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about those in my family or even most in my immediate environment, but those usually in a situation of some authority, military leaders, politicians, occasionally a teacher, or surprisingly, even some students, who would use vulgar language or make rude gestures or even threaten or bully others. When I was a kid, this shocked me to the core of my being. And I desperately wanted to escape this element, this heavy atmosphere that seemed to permeate outside of the safety of my family with their kindness and lightheartedness. I really didn't know how to deal with this outer social world and the uncertainties within that mood, that undertone of negativity. So, to be honest, I spent some years learning to adapt, and not always in a positive way. I mean, as I studied my peers, for example, I could see that the most popular kids at school were those who had a sort of brash, overly confident personality. And this also carried over to the adults. During these years, I kind of became a student of humanness, so to speak, and began to see what worked and, what was admired by others. I began to recognize that there was a sort of mode of behavior of those who became most successful in life. And I, as this observer, discovered that this was the way this 3D world worked. Those in authority, just generalizing here obviously, but those in authority get to that level because they have an ambition that encourages a disposition to think and act outside of the rules. Kind of a look out for number one mentality. Do it to them before they do it to you sort of viewpoint. And as I say, I'm obviously generalizing here to make a point. But this leads up to the original topic that I first mentioned. And I also should say that over time, on the other hand, I've also discovered the amazing beauty and overall benevolence of the majority of nature and mankind on planet Earth. Yet at that time, and in my impressionable state, the way I saw it was that the game plan of humanity, of mankind, was to rule or be ruled, bully or be bullied. Fairly obvious within the political world, or even in narcissistic doctors or lawyers out for themselves. So, how is it possible to maintain a positive attitude within this sea of self-centeredness? And how did I get beyond this opinion, this belief that there is something very wrong with the world the way it is? Well, this is what I want to talk about today and share some things that utterly turned my viewpoint around and changed not only my way of thinking about this world and its humanity, but also my own perspective of living here. I discovered that no matter how hard you try to change others or the world, it will never work, because it's a consensual universe. Most of us are on a default setting, putting our attention on what is wrong. Therefore, by focusing on what we don't like, only creating more of it. The world we live in is constantly being built and altered through our own beliefs and impressions of what we see and hear. So we're authorizing others, the planet, to dictate our reality instead of the other way around, where we, through our welcoming reception, are able to impose upon the world a reality based upon our own loving heart. Have you noticed that when a person has lived to a very old age, let's say over 100, when asked their philosophy of life, they nearly all say the same thing: don't take life so seriously. This is the key. These elders, through their life experience, have figured out how to let go of worry. Looking back over life, they've been able to recognize how hoping to change others is a useless battle and only causes stress and disease. I remember Wayne Dyer one time telling of a family member who was previously very uptight, but after a near-death experience became very calm under any condition, dogs barking. When the interviewer asked why he thought this was, Wayne said, "It's because she now sees the bigger picture." He intimated that she now knows that things are always the way they're meant to be. Therefore, it does no good to complain or become a victim of circumstance. That will only bring unhappiness and illness. And that's a hard concept to swallow unless you're able to view it from a higher insight. It's like Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. And this suggests the need for a shift in mindset, withdrawing from the conventional thinking and embracing a new perspective to successfully confront our problems. So, as I said, this has been my deep desire to, in this lifetime, reach the place where I'm no longer triggered by what's happening around me or what's going on in the world or by what other people do or say. And lately, it has come clear what it takes to bring this mastery into life. And I just thought I would share a few thoughts with you. You know, one of my favorite movies from several years ago was Forrest Gump. I was so taken by his innocence, which of course was blamed on his low IQ, but was really just the way he saw things. He completely lived in the present moment. Like when he decided to take off for a run, as he put it, for no particular reason. He decided to go for a run. He just put on his new Nike jogging shoes and ran, and ran, and ran. Well, he ends up running for 3 years. 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, and 16 hours, to be exact. Crossing the Mississippi River 4 times. Well, at some point, as you know, he comes to be a sort of celebrity curiosity. And as others become intrigued with why this reclusive individual would do something so unconventional, he begins to pick up followers who figure that he must be on some amazing spiritual quest. I think recognizing his peaceful demeanor, they began following him, wanting to know what he knows, until he has a huge crowd behind him, hoping he will lead them to nirvana, hoping that when he stopped, they would learn the meaning of life. Well, one day he stops running. Everyone who's behind him also stops, eagerly waiting, straining to hear what they had been waiting for mile after mile. They watched in total silence as he turned around to face them. And what were these great, long-awaited words of wisdom? I think I'll go home now. He wasn't running for a reason. He was just running because he wanted to. And when he was done, he was done. And for you movie fans, it turns out he ends up running 13,889 miles. Yeah, this simple, beautiful soul just living his life, doing something none of us would ever consider doing. My kind of movie. Well, back in the early 80s was the first time I ever heard the now famous statement by Guru Krishnamurti. Well, Krishnamurti was an Indian mystic who, rather ironically, felt very strongly that if you're following someone else, like a spiritual teacher or a guru, you'll never find truth. Well, it was during his 1977 lecture in California when during his talk he paused and leaned forward to the audience, and with a sort of conspiratorial tone, he said, "Do you want to know what my secret is?" And of course, the entire audience leans forward in anticipation. Then, in sort of a hushed voice, he said, "You see, I don't mind what happens." Well, when I first heard him say this, a feeling of electricity shot through me, and I knew this was the answer I had been searching for. if I could only make this happen for myself. So, over months and years, I began asking myself what that would be like. What if I didn't mind if I had money or not, and never worried about it? Imagine, what would that feel like? What would it feel like to not mind if I was alone and had no one to talk to or to kiss or to cook for? What would it feel like to be completely unconcerned whether I had hair or not, whether people liked me, whether I had friends? What would it feel like to be free from this societal pressure of being accepted, to be acceptable just as I am? Well, I've learned that this pressure we put upon ourselves creates an internal conflict, always measuring and analyzing the circumstance to determine whether we pass the test of being good enough, pretty enough, smart enough. And this internal assessment can follow us throughout life. Yet, when we reach a point of not being bothered by anything, then there is no conflict inside. And when there's no conflict inside, there's no conflict outside. Happiness is accepting what is and letting go of what you can't control. If you rely on the outside world to provide you with happiness, like a boyfriend or a new car, then you'll be controlled by whatever's happening in your life. As Joseph Campbell put it, we must let go of the life we have planned so as to accept the one that is waiting for us. Great quote. In fact, nothing outside of us has any meaning at all until we give it meaning. However, we need to remember that if viewed through fear or apprehension, the meaning we give it could be very flawed. For example, if someone has lied to us, we may decide that now everything that person says to us is a lie. Then what can happen is that since we have given this meaning to everything we hear from this person, the brain can receive the emotion that we're feeling and actually reinforce that truth. Okay, so we can't control the circumstances of life, but what we can control is how we respond to those circumstances. It's a decision, just like any other decision, to quit smoking or give up sweets. Just like those victories, this may seem difficult at first too, but when we make the decision, we really can learn to accept life just as it is. And believe me, when we're able to do this, life gets so easy because there's no reaction to it. There's no reaction to anything, no stress involved in anything that comes along. We really can create an authentic life through learning to say yes to our reality. And this is not a weakness, this is a strength. We're not pretending. We're simply accepting the wisdom that everything is just what it is. The circumstance or event is not bad or good. It just is. The other part of this is that once we realize we can't control what another person thinks or feels, there's no reason for emotion, like anger or disappointment. Once we can rethink how we're going to interpret life, getting through each harsh experience becomes much easier. This is our escape hatch, our ascension from ignorance into the brilliance of insight, and finally, wisdom. Okay, enough for now. I love you guys. Bye.